in a physical way. It's reported that many people, kind of the set point is when they were 30 years old. That's why people in after-death context report as looking healthy, happy around 30. Or he may materialize or appear to you as energy, multiple lights, colored lights, or in different ways. So that's how he would appear.
Let me ask the obvious question let me address the elephant in the room. What do you say to someone that says this is just a way to put an image on a video screen and claim that it would be my grandfather?
Yeah, well, that's why grandfather will also be talking and also be able to provide information independently. And again, this can all occur computer automated without any of the experimenters in the building, so there's no question of them impacting it. And all of this will be evaluated by independent scientists, professional skeptics, magicians, and so on, as Dr. Schwartz's research has been, for example, as he described in his book, The Afterlife Experiments. But to get back to your question about the soul video, David Bohm gave some information to Dr. Schwartz through a couple of the mediums. He said, we are visible to the human eye. It's just that we only can be perceived 1 or 2 frames out of every 10,000 frames that the eyes process. And so that perhaps explains why a person will feel like they saw somebody out of the corner of their eye. Is that my mom or is that my dad? Oh, it must have been my imagination. Well, maybe the person really did see for just a moment. So Dr. Schwartz took this information and ran with it. He got a high-speed camera that takes 60,000 frames per minute, put it up against a black screen, and so the control would be you don't ask any, quote, spirits to stand in front of the camera. And so for 10 minutes, you've got a black screen. Okay, that's your control. Then one of the mediums would ask one of the, what they call hypothesized collaborating spirits, to stand in front of the camera. Let's say it's Albert Einstein, and move around some, because the movement is easier to capture than a still person. Well, then, if the high-speed camera takes 10,000 frames per minute, and you take it for 10 minutes, you would expect to have at least 20 or 30 visual images visible to the human eye. Well, then he got a computer specialist from China, a PhD, brilliant woman, and she came up with a proprietary software program to detect anomalous frames. In other words, if you've got 100,000 frames, well, you're going to go through it frame by frame and find one that's different from the others. So this software kicked out then the frames that were different, that had a blurry image, and then those can be put together and be a rudimentary video. All this is very basic right now, crude, but should increase as we go, especially once we have, even with just the switch, Dr. Schwartz will be able to communicate with these scientists much more and say, can I improve upon the soul video research now? Yes. Does it have to do with the software? No. Does it have to do with the hardware? Yes. Does it have to do with the camera? Yes. And then it's kind of like following a trail to find out then how to improve it. So it's in its very infancy.
And I've got I'm going to make a or one last question, and then Steve, I'm going to let you jump in, because I know that the science aspect is Steve's end. But for me, just somebody that has listened to the story and the examples and the examples that you've put forth, I think it would be reasonable for anyone, and it would be reasonable for you to expect anyone to ask this question. It looks like it could be a computer-generated program, because you said that it's there's not going to be any testers in there, so there won't be any kind of interference. What's someone, what prevents somebody from thinking that it's just a algorithm that kicks out answers and puts kind of I guess a different image or whatever it would be for the video aspect. And with the voice, I'm assuming that I wouldn't be able to actually hear my grandfather's voice. So all of the aspects of what I would expect to see on the other end of that call are different in some way. And that's being explained as it's a manifestation of who or what he is on the other side. And how do you answer somebody that says that's just a convenient explanation for a program that is essentially creating this being on the other side that is a connection to the person that they once loved and lost?
Sure. Excellent question. Sure. And the answer is, keep in mind, again, in the very beginning, there will be confirmatory tests. So if you could ask, let's say you see a hazy image and hear a voice, it doesn't sound like your grandfather, but you could ask questions that were answered either via the yes or no or the text or a voice that was discernible, yes or no. And you went through a series of questions. For me, did we have a dog named Snoopy when I was a kid? Yes or no. Did we live on Woodward Avenue? Yes or no. Asking detailed questions that only your grandfather would know. Grandfather, did you have a dog when I was a little kid named this? You get a series of answers like this. Also, we've done some early research so far that the computer would show images. For example, it would show a picture of you when you were a little kid and say, Grandpa, was this me when I was a child? Yes. Then show a picture of a total stranger. Was this me when I was a child? No. Again, a series of images like this. Was this our house? And so on. So after some point,
do you have the data on that? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but do you have the data on that people can actually go through and see, like, how many instances it's actually asking these specific questions or identifying these pictures correctly? Like, what are the statistics on that?
Yeah, there's just early. Keep in mind, this is very early. There's data, and it's been replicated, but will it be released? No, we've just started talking to one investor, so this is so early on. And of course, patents, what's it called, intellectual property, IP, and so on needs to be protected. So none of that will be revealed now, but will be eventually when Dr. Schwartz writes up the scientific papers that are published.
Okay, Steve, I'll let you jump in and.
Okay, yeah, I have a lot of questions on the science, but before we get to the science, on the data analysis that you're doing that Kyle has asked about, when it comes to the statistical significance of the hit rate, if I'm having a communication with somebody, let's say like the deceased uncle or something like that, for one, I won't be able to ask them any specificities of questions, such as where did I leave something or where did he leave something before he died? I won't get a specific answer, correct? And if I'm asking yes or no, if he answers the wrong question, if I say, is it true this condition, and they get it wrong, is that due to a bad connection, or what is the statistical significance of them not getting the question correct if I'm actually having a communication with somebody who should know these answers?
Yeah. What Dr. Schwartz wants is 98% reliability and accuracy. But what early technology works that well all the time? And it's a good observation that matters like this, whether it's mediums or this sort of work, are held to a much higher expectation of results than, for example, a superstar baseball player hits 300, hits 3 out of 10 times to the plate. But certainly we would expect, let's say, in the 90% range, which would be, Dr. Schwartz is a big statistics man, but what are the chances that your questions could be answered 9 out of 10 times repeatedly? They're off the charts stat-wise.
And where is it at right now, according to technology? Where would you say that the consistency rate is above statistical where would you say it is compared to what we would get from just random chance?
Mm-hmm. It's around 90% so far, the accuracy from these early
And
experiments.
that data is not available yet? It's not available for publication or
no.
review yet?
No, my goodness. And by the way, that's why really we're not doing any media interviews right now, but Kyle and I have been in touch, and I agreed to do this one, but it's really early to talk about this.
Can I ask what you present to your investors, though? If they're asking about your statistical review process, the way you're actually doing your methodology, if they want to see that's above norm, and as Kyle very astutely pointed out, how do they know that it's not just an algorithm type thing or just random chance? There has to be a significant value that you're doing your analysis on. So, do any of them ask for that methodological approach that you're taking, and that you can reject the null hypothesis on this?
Yeah, well, first of all, we haven't approached any investors yet, but one approached us a few weeks ago who owns a tech company. His father passed on, and he was a atheist, this fellow, but after his dad died, thought, well, I'll look at the evidence. He went to a medium and had a very meaningful experience, multiple specific bits of information that no one could have known. And then he started searching, and the soul phone kept popping up. And so that's when he contacted us about his interest. And we'll be meeting with him probably in about 2 weeks when there will be a demonstratable soul switch device to show.
Okay. Let's kind of dive into the science real quick. So you mentioned some things about the energy. Are you saying that, one, we've established dualism as opposed to well, are you saying that the mind can exist independent of a physical substrate? And if that's the case, what are they using to quantify the consciousness? What units of energy are they using to say this is the amount of energy we can actually use in empirical data for formalization?
Yeah, you're beyond me, Steve. I'm a healer, I'm a teacher, I'm a counselor, I'm the spokesperson, but Dr. Schwartz is a big science guy, so I can't answer that. So, great question.
Because on the page under Dr. Schwartz, he talks about frequency of photons spanning electricity and radio waves. This seems to be a lot to deal with a type of electromagnetic radiation. And so is the technology somehow using electromagnetic radiation in incorporation to communicate with the deceased?
Yeah, there are actually 8 different methods. One measures changes in electromagnetic information or electromagnetic radiation, another movement, another sound, another video. So there are 8 different ways, and he's working on these, and he also has this team that's working to see which one's going to come to fruition first, because it's unknown. I mean, this is totally unprecedented research.
And he doesn't have yet a causal mechanism by which they're communicating, by which they can interact with a physical?
Well, it would depend on what device you're talking about, but they're being
either one. The video for the video. What's the causal mechanism by which the video is being manipulated that we can see some kind of, let's say we have an indicator, right? We have a whatever your indication system is, a needle or whatever. There has to be something that actually causes that to happen, right? There has to be a causation. What is the mechanism by which the deceased is using whatever to cause that causation? Do we see something as a physical indicator that it is the deceased we're talking to?
Is this guy smart or what, Kyle? The mechanism is the mechanism is the same mechanism that allows us to see each other. In other words, they have energy that can manifest, can be picked up by photographic film. Einstein said one time through one of the mediums, we are historical energy systems that tend to show ourselves in a way that the observers will be able to acknowledge. So when these, quote, deceased luminaries show themselves to the mediums, they've got tweed jackets on and a pipe and so on, much like they did when they were Oxford professors. However, that's not the way they look all the time. It's just one of various permutations they can choose.
Kai, we do have some questions for the live feed. Want me to